Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the VeVe Vantage Podcast. Our special guest today is Steven Friedlander. He's a very passionate VeVe collector, a great guy. We met him at New York Comic Con, so that is another connection from that fantastic event. Steven has decades of experience in retail, marketing, and technology. In this conversation, we talked about the different components needed for VeVe to be successful. Steven also has a lot of exposure in other metaverses and the AR in AI technology as well. So we learn a lot. This is a very wide-ranging conversation, but also gets very in-depth. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Let's get to it. Steven, thank you so much for joining us today. We had a fun time chatting in New York, and we are really very excited to learn from your decade of experience in different industries like retail, marketing, technology, and most recently, and most importantly, your work in Web3 and the Metaverse. So again, really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And I really look forward to learning from you. And so to those who don't know about you, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Mr. V. It's really great being here. I enjoyed meeting you guys in New York City and spending some time there talking, because I think in real life is super important, and that's what I really enjoy most about this. My name is Steve Friedlander. I was born in Chicago, lived in the Midwest for a bunch of years, grew up in a place called Scarsdale, New York, Westchester County. Went to college in Michigan, raised my family in Greenwich, Connecticut. I have two beautiful children. Was married for 21 years, one time. Most recently, just this September, I got married for the second time, which I never thought I would, but have a wonderful woman that I'm with. By accident, I joined a family business right out of college and did that for 20 years. Built a vertically integrated women's fashion jewelry business, sold it to a big retail conglomerate. Had an awesome experience, met great people, and learned a lot. From there, I got involved in private equity, met some great guys, was involved in real life real estate development, which subsequently I've done digitally now, and really have been in a variety of different industries, based on primarily focused on brands. I built and feel comfortable with founders and owners of businesses. And ultimately, I'm a business guy. I'm an operator from a private equity perspective. I really focus on sales and marketing of different companies. Once we sold our family business, I also started my own business as a consulting firm, and have been in a variety of different industries. I've attended or participated in over 300 trade shows in the last 40 years in 5 different industries. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys now and more specific about how I got into ultimately Web3 and our VeVe connection. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Awesome. So you help companies reach their audience and gain better insights about their audience. So looking at VeVe, what is the team doing right, and what do they need to do better?
What's so interesting about VeVe, and taking a step back, I entered the Web3 space in around September of 21. And my entrance into the space was through the Sandbox and through Animoca Brands. I had a cousin who is a family business attorney out of Chicago, and he was doing development in the Sandbox and needed help. I was intrigued by Animoca Brands and the number of brands they had, and I didn't join VeVe until December of 21, and my first NFT was Steamboat Willie. I clicked the button. I just added that. I added VeVe to my list of do your own research on Web3 digital collectibles. So I was involved in all of the other NFT projects at that time. I was doing my own research. I was following Gary Vee, intently on Gary Vee and his V friends and what they were doing in the educational piece of NFTs and what all that meant. VeVe comes along. I see that. I see these two guys. The company is in New Zealand. Now, I had some experience in Australia because during that time and my relationship with in the sandbox is I started a development company called Alpine, and we built a digital real estate home in the sandbox, a Chicago park. And I had a chief technology officer in Brisbane, Australia. And he kind of knew and heard about VeVe, and we kind of talked about it. And it was digital collectibles. It was fun. We were building a Chicago park with digital assets, with buildings. And in the sandbox at that time, they were selling assets for 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. They sold a boat for $650,000,
Wow.
which later, when you learn, wasn't real. It was made up. But I was very focused on those big brands and now when Disney came along and I saw Disney, I'm a huge, obviously, wherever Disney's going, I'm going to follow from a brand perspective. But I didn't really understand these guys, David and Dan from New Zealand, and their philosophy and what it was. And they were not Americans. So there was some disconnects for me. Then you realize all the brands they have. The IP is incredible. They're incredible. I mean, during my first part of my experience, we were Ralph Lauren's licensee. So I know what it's like to be a licensee. Ralph Lauren was very challenging to work with. We did it for 10 years. We were one of their most successful licensees. And that's what gave us the ability to project our brand internationally. What David and Dan have built is a portfolio of brands that will take them all over the world. This is an international company. It's not an American company. And I think a lot of the people that view it as American company, like other companies like DC or Candy or some of these other NFT projects, or just real companies. They don't have the exposure to international companies. I have to give a huge shout out right now to Alex G, because he's been here for the beginning for VeVe and really has carried the torch for the Americans, right? I know there's a lot of people in Europe and what they're doing in France and everything. So back to your question. I'm sorry, I had to put a little context to it, because when we talk about building audiences, there's a general audience of people that like the brand VeVe, that like David and Dan, they like what they're doing. There are a lot of people that don't like what they're doing because they're not like some of the other founders or developers of NFT projects, which I'm involved in a lot of them. I follow a lot of them because I follow Disney and I follow the brands to see what they're doing and how they're propelling themselves. So to build the audience, each brand has its own silo of audience. So you could have, theoretically, and when you talk about brand community builders, I break them down into 3 categories. There's an advocate, someone who advocates, who supports and recommends and the cause and the policy of the company. Then there's the influencer, which I view as very short term. It's, there's a micro influencer at 100,000. There's mega influencers of 1 million plus. How important is that? It's very short term as I see it. The most important piece, and the word that I use a lot, and other companies have started integrating that's the ambassador. That's the person who wants to raise the brand awareness, who has a long-term relationship with the brand. They're part of the brand. Now, you could do that with VeVe, but you could also do that with Disney. You could do it with Marvel. You could do it with Ubisoft. You could do it with all the different brands. The challenge then becomes getting deep into those communities to then educate them on what digital collectibles are. If you look at the Disney pin business, it's $200 million in pins. Now, it took a long time for them to get to that point, but those pin collectors, the fact that they collect the pin, now there's this, I don't know if you've had the chance to be at a park and watch pin trading and see pin trading and those kinds of things, but it's also an in real life activity. Now, what VeVe's getting to and what the Metaverse will do for us is that we are in real life being together live now. Yes, this is being taped and recorded, but we're together. A lot of our interaction when you buy on VeVe, you're just buying and selling. You're not really trading or interacting. So I think we scratched the surface. What are they doing? Are they doing the right things? Yes, they're doing all the right things. Could they do more? Of course they could do more. There are 20 social media platforms that have deep silos of people that they could spend, a person in each silo. I don't know how they break up their business and how they divide all of their things, but I do know it's an international thing. So you got multiple languages. So David's in Japan right now. David will be in Japan, as we've heard, for a couple of weeks. David could spend a couple of weeks in every major country in the world because of who he is and his personality. The real question is, how does the business become bigger than David, Dan, Alex, and anybody else? It becomes something of its own, where it has its own momentum and its own acceleration. And it's just going to take time. I mean, it's really, from what I have watched, only, it's 3 years old, 4 years old, maybe 2 years old. I think 2023 was a phenomenal year for them. I still think that they're getting their ebbs and flows. I think it's very challenging. They're being in New Zealand with time zones and having, a majority of your business being here and other places, and the travel's hard. Time, as Mr. V said before he came on the call, I'm realizing that I don't control my own time. And yes, you might be CEO of a company, but actually the bigger the company gets, the less time you have. So I know David likes to collect, right? He goes to San Diego Comic-Con. I saw him standing in line to get autographs. We love all of that stuff. But at some point, that's what becomes harder and harder and harder. And what I've done over my career is work with the founders of the business to allow them to take things off of their plate, right? My job is to eliminate and to figure out what they like doing, what they want to do. And how businesses grow is different today than it was yesterday, and it will be tomorrow. So, like I said before, there are multiple measurements of success. It's not just about making money. It's not just about making profit. It's about a combination of things. You can't look at one thing to determine whether you think it's the best company or the worst company, because there's too many things in there to be able to pick and choose. So sorry for my long-winded answer, but I do think, listen, they're doing great things. They could do so many things. The technology that I'm working with in a big ad tech company called Mobiquity Technologies does programmatic advertising. Now, do I think that VeVe should advertise as a banner ad on ESPN? No, not necessarily. Do I think they could do certain things and test? Because there's audience building, there's lookalikes, they may be doing some of this. I just don't know. And it's not their responsibility to share what they're doing, right? So I do have a lot of respect for being a privately held company and running your business your own way. To ask David to explain how he does certain things, that's not critical to me. Because this is not a financial investment for me. I'm a huge collector because I love the brands. I've shifted what I collect and how I collect significantly based on the last 2 years and things that have happened. But overall, I think that where they're at, they've done a phenomenal job. We're here, we're supporting them. And I think there are a lot of other people out there. I don't really understand this whole fudder thing, but we'll leave that for a whole nother discussion.
So with all of your experience in different metaverses, and particularly Sandbox and building within that space, what elements do you see from VeVe? As what foundational pieces do you see that could help them in terms of building in their own in the VeVeVerse? Because I'll be honest, since the very beginning, I've had a very difficult time embracing the VeVeVerse. It looks very cool with the work that Hales from Rizzo and Mr. Falcon, what they've done. I'm very appreciative, and I respect that kind of effort that they put into it, and it looks great. But just in terms of myself, I have a hard time jumping into that kind of space. I know sometimes it takes a lot of it might take us being in it to be able to understand things. For me, I'm very visual. So with you having all this experience in other metaverses, and then what VeVeVerse is trying to bring to the forefront for its client base, what do you see from the company as helping bring themselves into that space with the whole thing in mind, with this whole thing in mind that there's a lot of people who have yet to see it, right? So
yeah, I got you, Mr. V, because the challenge is the unknown, right? And we can go back. One of my favorite books that I am rereading, or not reading, I listen to a lot of books. It's called Crossing the Chasm. It was written in 1991. It talked about technology and the adoption of technology, and it's how you cross that chasm, how market dynamics of new tech and what's the adoption gap, how you cross that gap, right? And I saw, based on some of my experience, I joined a Vogue business group in 2021 for about 6 months subscription. They had a couple of events. They had a partnership with Spatial. It turns out it was Spatial. I didn't know it was Spatial, and went into a metaverse, just very similar to how, and a huge shout out to Sanjay, who really, as a true ambassador, as a leader in the group, trying to educate and taking people into his, I don't know if you've seen it or saw it, he did a yacht party. He had a party on his space and gave away a yacht in his metaverse, and it was Spatial's place. So I understood what the metaverse could be, and we built it in the sandbox, and we have a video of our space, and you can run around, and it's voxel art. So it's those little characters, which I'm not a huge anime person either. So it was hard for me visually, like, who's going to go here? Who's going to do what? But then when I saw other people doing it, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I ran around myself in a couple of metaverses, saw the lady get stuck under the bridge, and we all laughed and pulled her out and thought it was fun. All right, fast forward now 2 years to where I was at DCon last year in Anaheim. I put my goggles on. I saw the VeVeVerse. I kind of expected what was going to happen. It's really, to your point, Mr. V, let's get going. Give it to us. Let's start playing. I think the thing they did really well was give it to a few people and show us what could be done. I think they need to accelerate that more to another layer of people, because it was good. Huge shout out to Michael Campa. He's become a dear friend of mine. Surely not a digital creator, but got the new VeVeVerse. And I was able to spend 4 hours with him, just chilling in New York City, walking around, going to comic book stores, talking. He had never been in Manhattan. And he was just talking about how cool the VeVeVerse was and how cool it's going to be when more people can come there to be together. Now, when Facebook came out, nobody understood how to use Facebook, what it was, what it meant, how to post a picture, how to do all those things. The real question is, same with LinkedIn, same with all these silos of social media. Now, can the VeVeVerse, can the metaverse be a connection for all of those? Because we know we have people in Twitter Spaces, because I go to Twitter Spaces and I love O'Malley's space and what Miss Gecko does, and Dave, aka NFL champion, talkie, and we're doing some AI stuff with him. But there's also the YouTubers, and then there's the podcasters, and we need to break through the silos, and everybody needs to party together. What I do like is, like, someone like Mr. Collectibles he'll have his space and then jump on a Twitter space and the cross-pollination. I'm a silo buster. I like crossing over. Now, VeVe can't, there's a couple words I don't really use in my vocabulary anymore, and one of them is can't. Because I'd never believe that you can't not do something. I believe you can always do something. There's very few things VeVe can do to move this forward if the technology is not ready, right? If you put 100 people in there, 1,000 people in there, and there are issues, which I do know from a technology perspective, about the numbers of people that you can put in this space, in these systems, and the costs could become astronomical if it's not controlled properly. I am involved in a couple of other metaverses, a place called Omniverse City, a woman by the name of Charlene Nichols, who's built a phenomenal ecosystem for the optical industry. I'm helping them out with Mobiquity, with data, because the optical industry is owned by basically 80% one company. And we're working to give the power back to the individual opticians, local, hyper-local, hyper-focused with data about the people that live in their community. And that's something that Mobiquity has and that we do and build for. So metaverses are places that people go and congregate. It's the mall. Wait, you want to be dropped off at the mall? What's the mall? I grew up right near Stamford, Connecticut, where the Talman Company built the first indoor mall. They're like, what do you mean the mall? Well, yeah, there's a bunch of stores and you go and then you're like, well, just drop me off and pick me up. Now there's no cell phones, right? So I'm going to run around the mall with my friends and go to different stores and stuff and then come back. And like, who knew how to do that? Who knew what was, so that's where we're headed, right? Who are the gatekeepers? Who's the law? What's allowed to be done? You know, can we curse in the VeVeVerse? Can we play raunchy music? What can we show? I don't know. I'm super excited. The problem is everybody's very impatient and there's some real shit world stuff going on. And this is supposed to be the fun part of our life, not the real part of our life. So I think the real tipping point, super tipping point, will be the new Apple product that comes out in January. Because every technology needs content. And what I do with brands and for brands is how to maximize your content, your brand, which then leads me to what I'm doing for Mobiquity, because from a technology perspective, with no more cookies, right? Your privacy, who you are as an individual, which feeds right into Web3, is that your data is yours. You're valuable. Where you go in the metaverse, and if someone wants to buy and sell your data, who you are, you should be compensated for that. And if I can figure out how I'm working on one project with some guys that are super smart, old-time data guys that with the blockchain, you can do microtransactions to how many decimal points. So if my data is used, I want to get paid. You know, there are some mechanisms of that now, but if that's the theme and that's the thought process, because you do want to get information from companies. I choose to take ESPN's feed, right? Because I want that data and I can even pick the sports teams that I want. But then if you're going to use my data, ESPN, pay me back for that. Now, we might be a little far away from that, but that's where I see metaverses going. Could ESPN have their own metaverse? Do they already have their own metaverse as their website? Yeah, right? I mean, everybody goes there. Now, are you interacting? No. So I think this melding of social media and this technology, because if you listen to some of the VeVeVerse people, you could stream a YouTube, have a Twitter space, watch a movie all at the same time. That, Mr. V, I need to see sooner than later, because if that's true, then you're going to have all of these people come to one place. You know, then the question is, how easy is it? 1 click, 2 clicks? Do I have to wait? Do I have to have a 10-word key to get in? You know, those are the kinds of things that, will it be token gated? How will it be token gated? Loyalty programs, points, all that stuff is all coming, all here, right? You know, if you want to get into it, like enough with the MCP points. You know, I'm accumulating them. I've already made my decisions. You know, I changed my strategy on VeVe when the Soul Stone thing screwed up. I was like, it's not quite there, the burning thing. So I'm not a Marvel guy anymore. I'm just all Disney, because I didn't want to have to do that. So, you know, I'm very excited about the future.
All right, thank you for that extensive insight. And you know, I'm still adjusting as well, based on how things are panning out with the company, and like they're starting to overlap a lot of crafting now. And anyways,
well, what did you do this weekend? What were your thoughts on the Mighties this weekend? Because I own all the Mighties, right? And I've been collecting them and I like them. But this weekend, this whole crafting thing, I'm not sure I was that into.
Yeah,
What'd you
I didn't. I bought two of the Mighties on the secondary market, and that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, I've scaled back a lot. I've sold a lot of my collectibles. I'm like around 80 collectibles now, maybe 10 comics, a few I'm trying to sell, but I'm narrowing down over time more and more what I have, just because I kind of see like there's the market saturation with the FAs and non-FAs, uh, and then the different renditions. Like you might have a Mighty, and you might have the more realistic version of the characters, those sort of things. And so I'm forcing myself. I'm really pushing myself to prioritize what's important for me, what's significant for me, and what I really enjoy. And
when you think about what's important to you, do you think about brand or price or just what it does, like animated, non-animated?
I animated is a bonus. Price is relative to where I'm at in that point in time. And in terms of significance, it's what I have an affinity for, that, and that may change too, because if you have kids, all of a sudden some characters that you thought you never would be interested in now remind you of your kids, or maybe some of them might tie back to when you were a kid, or something that you enjoyed as an adult. It all varies and it evolves over time, I think.
100% evolves over time. I just found out my daughter is actually pregnant with her. I'll be grandfather for the first time, and thinking about her when she's going to be born. Well, now that I know it's a girl, starting to collect things for my granddaughter, putting them away. Like I had wished listen, I found a box of coins that my grandfather had bought for me. And what are those kinds of things that I could collect for my daughter now, my granddaughter, and where you have and those things. Now you hear there's a couple of people in the space that have like 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kids. That seems to be that age by which they're like grabbing the phone and playing the AR and doing the different things. And what's hard about VeVe, I think, is that it's multi-generational. The scope of products that it has. So when you pull up the marketplace and you see the variety of things on the marketplace, it's kind of funny in some ways to me. It's a little comical, because if you're the serious collector on James Bond and you're deep into that, seeing some of these other cartoon characters might seem different. It's not as clean as it could be. I also never liked their analogy, and it reminds me of Walmart. I'm not a huge Walmart shopper. I'll go there for a very specific thing, but as a digital retailer, I'm not sure anybody's done it great yet. I like what Candy and DC have done, is they've just combined baseball, and they all have, they have a variety of different things, but you don't see them all together, not on one screen. Now you can look at different things different ways. Versus someone like Cryptoys, right? I love Cryptoys. I love the team. I love the brands, but they're all one type of character. And you either have to like it or not like it, or then really what their mission is really to be the digital toy company for the kids and for parents. And I love the fact that they're pushing hard to do all the privacy laws, and I'm very familiar with the privacy laws based on the work I do with Mobiquity and gaming. How you get into gaming and what the age breaks are and the privacy laws, and they're all there for a good reason. But if they can crack that code, which, being a partner, Cryptoys is a partner with Mattel, who obviously makes lots of toys at lots of ages. They'll be able to do that. And once that's done, that'll break through another barrier of distribution and ways. Now, can VeVe do that? Could VeVe do that? Of course. But where does it fit on their schedule of business opportunities? Do I choose to go to 13 and under for the United States versus cracking China? I don't know. I'd sit in those rooms and I'd love to sit and have those conversations, right? But now, are they mutually exclusive? I don't think so. But can you do both at the same time? And do you have, they don't announce that this is a self-grown business. It's not like they have partners with Mattel or somebody else like that. They have licensees, right? They don't have. It's not like Disney's taking them places. Mattel will take Cryptoys places. It's the difference. It's how different businesses are being built, right? You can be a publicly traded company. It's how you finance your business. I'm working with a company that's public now. They're a publicly traded company. They're on that's challenging versus most of my work comes working with a private equity firm where there's, three dudes that make a decision. Venture capital is a whole different mess because they won't talk to you for like 3 months and then ask you for your financial statement and then yell at you and then maybe help or not. It depends on how they want and how they're growing their business. That's what I find fascinating about what they're doing. When you get too upset with the fact that, they take your money and then they don't give it to you for 3 days or communicate with you for 3 days, that's a problem for me. I mean, those are basic business things that, I would have written the check out of my checkbook right there, right then. I mean, it's about communication. Now, the only representative that I know from the company in leadership is Alex G, who's here in the United States, right up the road, right in LA. Looking forward to seeing him hopefully this weekend at DCon. I mean, he's got a huge challenge trying to manage all this stuff from around the world and be a spokesperson for United. I mean, it's huge amount of respect for everybody there and doing what they're doing. And watching what they're doing and continuing to do it. I mean, but I'm watching. I watch a lot. I watch everywhere. I try and have connections with lots of people that hopefully we can all learn from each other, because my next venture and what I'm focused on right now is an AI business. Because I think AI is the way to educate people on NFTs and blockchain. I think that's going to be one of the biggest bridges and accelerators for brands and businesses, and could be for VeVe too. I'm not sure to what extent they're using AI in any of their internal business, external business. I don't think they are. But we sure have a bunch of ideas for them if they'd like. But they're expanding. They're doing their thing right now with their ambassadors and some of their work, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of invisible problems they have to overcome, and time is a huge factor here. And I know that because, well, one problem that everybody see is why hasn't VeVe acquired more customers? And from my perspective, I feel like it is a problem with education and time. Simply because, like in the past, as a content creator, I share VeVe content and VeVe NFTs on different subreddits, like the Marvel subreddits, the Superman subreddit, the DC Comics subreddits, to create bridges. Like, hey, if you like Superman, you probably will enjoy this first Superman NFT. And the responses have been very negative. It's like people think of NFTs as scam, and until today, so I think we still have a lot of educations we need to do, and maybe time. Like, people don't just adopt things right away. Sometimes things takes time. I liked how you mentioned the Apple headset. I think that's gonna really revolutionize the way that we view digital collectibles, simply because, like at the moment, if I want to show my VeVe NFT to my friend, I have to pull out my phone, right? And then, put up the AR mode and show them. That's not really an experience. That is just me pulling out my phone, showing a picture. I know it's an AR and everything like that, but it's just a picture. There's no way they can experience it. They can hear the sound of Darth Vader from my phone, but it's like that tiny sound coming from a speaker.
The ringtone. That's just a ringtone.
It's just a ringtone. But then if you put in a headset and it's right in front of you and you are surrounded by this space, dedicated to that one or multiple NFT or digital collectibles, then that's gonna be a whole lot different experience.
It's interesting because David talked about Japan.
Mhm.
I think let's back up. Language and words mean something. So the actual fact that it's called a non-fungible token, the fact that it's a token, which implies a financial money piece, right? Tokens are exchanged. They are, it's money in some form, right? This is a non-fungible, but a token is a token. A dollar is a dollar no matter what. An NFT is net, right? In Japan, they don't call it a token. They call it rights, non-fungible rights. You have this thing. Now, if you explore that for a moment and say, my NFT, if you went into Reddit and said, at Disney Reddit and said, here's a non-fungible rights collectible that if you own this, gives you access, gives you then what's called utility, right? Whatever you want to call utility. It allows you to become part of this family of Disney people that gives you, and what utility, the definition of utility is being evolved and changed over time. And I do think that in some ways, they're not wrong by saying NFTs is just a money play. Because in a lot of ways, that's what it was. And in a lot of ways, that's the reputation it will have forever. Between this time and this time, NFTs were not good. Now, how does that evolve and how does that move? And coming back to your point, education. And when you can see what they do and how they can interact, and then the game piece, right? We need more gamers. We need to mesh those worlds of what gaming and NFT, and understanding that they're not bad things, they're good things. You're already doing it, but now you get to take it away. Now, what does that mean, take it away? Now you get into that one word that everybody freaks out about, and that's called interoperability. And if you're in the Web3 space, where you fall on the interoperability scale is interesting. It's not critical, right? It's a fundamental part of the technology and a critically important part, but doesn't apply equally to all categories that are using the technology. That's my opinion. So taking your Mickey Mouse off the web to be able to put somewhere else or to be able to sell on Ocean, it's not critical to me. Understand the concept, respect it implicitly, because there will be, and there are NFTs, NFRs, other stuff that you need to be able to take away and own and obviously show, and that's going to be your ticket, whether it's the title of your house, your car. Those things will all ultimately could ultimately be on the blockchain, and utilize technology to make it transparent, efficient, and all those things that Web 2 did for Web 1. And so it's not a straight line, it's a jagged line. And you have to enjoy the journey. It's going to be super frustrating. Listen, I pushed a lot of buttons. I didn't go to San Diego Comic-Con last year because I bought off of Ticketmaster a fake ticket. And so I went to go. It was an afternoon session. I just wanted to go check it out. Not this year. It was last year. And I bought a fake ticket on Ticketmaster.
Wow.
On a legitimate space. So now you're like, shit, is everybody trying to just get you? I mean, it was, but then you're like, all right, welcome to the club. Listen, I spent my $1,000 on some silly VeVe thing last year, and I take my lumps. It's all right. I mean, it's a good story. It's part of the fun. It's part of collecting.
I'm very wary when I recommend anything to anybody, especially nowadays when you're referencing crypto or digital collectibles or NFTs or NFRs. And so I've definitely scaled back. And like, I might hear some people mention different tokens or different projects, and I'm thinking to myself, that's a huge liability. That's a huge liability because anyone could point back to you and hold you accountable. in some capacity. And when there's enough people that group together, then you have something very real, right? So with that in mind, what's your take on recommending or kind of encouraging people to take a look at digital collectibles or NFRs or NFTs, just, with all those liabilities in mind?
I don't. People ask me what I involved in. I was at 2 Christmas parties this weekend. What do you do? Who are you?
You know what? Same here. I don't talk about it. I'll talk about it when people get it and they come discussing with me about it. I don't talk about it in the sense that, hey, check this out.
I did. So remember, I told you my first VeVe NFT was Steamboat Willie for $60, and it was over the Christmas holidays, or it was December 21st, and I went away, came back to work, worked in a small office, and by then it had gone from like $60 to like $2,000, and then it went to $10,000, and I had shared. I was like. And I worked with a woman who is a Disney pass holder, very similar to VeVe Magic, passionate about VeVe. Her husband's a detective at here in San Diego at the police department. And we worked together in a business that supported military, 2 Navy SEALs. We started the business. Came out here to San Diego to start this business for 2 Navy SEALs. And it was pre-hospital trauma gear. So we sold tourniquets and gear for pre-hospital trauma, school shootings, and those kinds of things. Her husband was a police officer in San Diego. They went to Disney as a complete escape. They used Disney as a complete escape, and they were pass holders. And I was like, Disney collectibles, these are the greatest things. You should buy them. They're going to go to $100,000, blah, 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 blah. And that was... She was like, nah, I'm really not interested. And they go to the past, and she's got all these collectibles at home and all kinds of stuff. And this is now, so January, February, and then all of a sudden, and it was at a point in my life and the business that I chose that I couldn't do it anymore. I'd done it for 8 years. It was a time for me to transition. We're deep into COVID now. And the world was changing significantly. And that's when I made a decision that there's something here in this VeVe stuff, but I don't know enough about it to promote it, to go sell it. And then other things, I'm not close enough to the business. Listen, I will, in every business that I've been part of, I've also been fortunate enough to be an owner of. So I look at things through the eyes of ownership, like if it's my business. And I couldn't get there with VeVe. Therefore, I couldn't, and I don't know that now I just talk about the digital space, Web3. I really talk a lot about AI, because if people don't know what Web3 is or cryptocurrency or NFTs, I say go to chat or go, they're like, well, AI, tell me about AI, because then that's easy because you're comparing AI to Google. When you talk about cryptocurrencies or NFTs, you can't compare it to anything. There's nothing there. They don't, the dark web, the black market. I mean, think about the age of the people that I'm at Christmas parties with, right? I mean, they're not. Now, are all of them interested right now with the world in the crisis of putting some money into Bitcoin? Sure, an alternative form of investment. Are they super excited about an ETF, Bitcoin ETF? For sure, because you want to get out of some of these corporations, mutual funds or specific companies. I mean, where to put money now is challenging. And with, it's a dynamic area. But to your point is, I don't. What I do and what I will start doing is supporting more people like, which I am, and I will, like you. People want to learn. They want to ask questions about what I've done, how I've done, the mistakes I've made. As people come in and do your own research, that's what AI is. AI is a tool to do your own research. Ask AI the question like you would ask the question. For me, it was hard. I mean, I got into every single NFT project to learn the business. I got my ass kicked by Recur. right? But I got some cool things. I went to a great party at San Diego Comic-Con. I met Sean from Comics and Crypto at that party. And I have now a great relationship with Spencer from Comics and Crypto. Kevin from Comics and Crypto is going to be the illustrator on my daughter's read aloud elementary school book, which we're going to try to publish next year at some point, physically and digitally. So yeah, the relationships that I made, I mean, those are lessons learned. Those are business. If you're going to learn something, you got to do it. You know, I tried to buy a Gap NFT, make your own sweatshirt once, NFT project from the Gap. I was like, holy shit, the Gap. Now we all saw Starbucks. Starbucks is in NFTs with their Odyssey loyalty program. And that's when I started our real estate development, digital real estate. The other piece was an NFT branded loyalty, because that's where it's all headed. I think all of this is, if you own the NFT, you earn points. You can redeem your points for airline miles, Starbucks gift cards, Amazon cards, just like a credit card now. That's going to be a true utility. The question is, these companies that run these NFT projects are going to have to skim some of their profits off the top in order to share with your customers, with your family, with your collectors. I view a lot of this as a collective now. I mean, and the new businesses that I'm starting, one that I'm starting, it's more of a collective. It's more of a group where people have skills like you guys. If we have a customer that comes to us that wants to do podcasts or wants to learn or wants to be interviewed and you're part of the collective. You're part of the community. It's really elevating. You know, Will from Cryptoys talks about water rises, all tide rises, all right, ships rise. We all want to swim in blue water, not red water. We don't need to be killing each other. There's no benefit of putting someone else down. It's about building everybody up. You know, brands are, I do a lot of cliche stuff. I'm sorry for some of the viewers, because I'm just an old guy. It's the easiest way for me to communicate. But I believe in brands as a foundation you build on top of, and the stronger your foundation is, the bigger you're going to be able to build. Because if you've got a lot of sporadic stuff, or you think that your brand is an umbrella above everything that's going to protect from the rain, I don't view that as the same way. I want to build as high as I can go. I don't want any limitations. I don't want someone to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. So that's kind of my philosophy on it. Now, I also don't need to be McDonald's, right? I'm not looking to be Gary Vee or Apple or something. I just would like a small little group of people doing some good things. And that's what I learned about working with the Navy SEALs. Small teams, you have a mission, you have a series of projects you need to accomplish before the mission. There's multiple measurements of success for that mission, but we're going to do multiple missions. Getting involved in NFTs and Web3 projects, people are like, I'm working on this project. Well, I do 10 projects a week. I'm not sure like your NFT. And that's what I didn't like about the industry at the very beginning, because it was all younger. Everyone was younger than me. I found myself in some of these Zoom calls as like the adult supervision, when these people were talking about, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm like, based on what experience or what history, why do you think? And as Gary Vee had said 2 years ago, 99% of all NFT projects are going to go to zero. Now, have they all gone to zero? A lot have. You know, the biggest brands, DC and Candy merging, you know, Major League Baseball and DC merging as a platform, because the technology is what it is. The brands will figure it out. I mean, the brands want this to happen. The question is the leaders of the technology groups and how they can work together and continuing to build the bridge. They're doing the same thing, Will, you're trying to do with Mr. V, right? Is build bridges amongst the community and the people. You know, I just like watching and seeing what's happened. Is it happening fast? On one hand, incredibly fast. Is it happening slow? So fucking slow. Excuse my French, but yeah, it's slow.
Yeah.
So I guess my whole thing for asking you in terms of, you know, coming back to my question as to whether or not you recommend or encourage people to, or nudge them to the space, is because there's been a lot of there have been a lot of discussions and outspoken members of the community who say promote VeVe, promote Omi, and this, that, and the other, right? And you kind of, in my opinion, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not promote one particular project. It's encourage them or push them in the direction of like, where can they educate themselves and figure it out on their own. And with that whole education component, we still need to have that AI feature, that AI resource readily available and feel organic. Because I remember being a kid, I used to help my friend build computers when I was in elementary school. I was like in fourth or fifth grade. And well, for me, there wasn't too much to do. And like I had the right kind of friends around me. And so around that time, there was search engines like Ask Jeeves, Yahoo, and then eventually Google popped up, and it was so raw, and like that wasn't even the go-to. And over time, it felt more natural because the search engine was a lot more comprehensive and exhaustive, and then they took over, right? I think we're still in that phase of like we have several different resources for AI, and we still haven't figured out, or they have not, one company or two companies haven't necessarily come to the forefront as the leader in that space for us to be able to say, for us to be able to use it as a verb, right?
We're close. We're getting close. I mean, Elon started yesterday or 2 days ago, right? His new AI bot, his AI platform, I should say. It's not a bot, but one of the things I've been working on with Dave, Talkie Dave. I don't know if you know Talkie Dave, but the concept of an AI bot. We're using it currently, and you can go see it on a company called myblocksense.com, which is a ad blocker, but privacy control that you load onto your computer. But we added a talkie bot not many people, some people understand what an ad blocker is. It's a Chrome extension, but they weren't really sure. So we added a talkie bot, an AI bot, where you can basically ask me anything. You can't ask it to give you a cake recipe, but you could ask, and we built the model, the data knowledge of the white paper, all of the website. The bot scrapes all of that stuff, and it's the personality of the founder of the company, which we gave the prompts of the bot, which you theoretically could do as if David was answering you. You could go to the VeVe site. You could say, "Hi, David, what's your favorite collectible on VeVe?" Now, all of that obviously would be pre-programmed in, but there are ways to have AI scrape your YouTube, Twitter, all your social media posts where it's one location, so that if you were to go theoretically to Alex G and ask him any information about any drop at any time in the past or theoretically in the future, because it's been loaded on the blog, I mean, it could be a little picture of Alex G, and he could tell you. Theoretically, you could ask it. It could be voice activated now with the way the technology works, so that you don't have to go to a website. And this is the business model. You don't have to go. You go to a website. You don't have to search around. There's just something there, like when you open a new tab on Google, on Chrome. There's your Google search. Well, you open a new tab, and it's more than just a Google search. It gives you a whole bunch of other opportunities, and one of them is your assistant. It's not a robot. It's an assistant. You trained it, becomes your friend. There's some really cool things happening. One of the coolest things beyond the education piece, but for psychology and psychiatry and having a friend and having a mentor and having someone to be able to talk to, I think it could have a lot of positive impact on mental health, which I think is a major issue in this country. And AI could help a lot there. To have fun and get us what we want, to see what we want when we want. That's what my goal is. I mean, so yeah, to your point, it's still raw. super raw. But you remember what it was like, ask Jeeves and ask those things. I mean, it'll all kind of go away. But I find what fascinating is how it gets there, right? Who tried, who didn't. And listen, I think we all want just to be able to have our own little slice, just our own little piece of an understanding and a flow and how we can do this. And it's hard. I mean, for sure, I didn't grow up with the technology. I'm still a paper guy. I still print and I like to touch and feel. And I don't actually read books. I listen to books, which is good because I can do two things at once. But yeah, the AI is super exciting, super powerful. And the business that I'm trying to build is help business owners understand how they can use it in their business. The first thing is fear. Everyone's going to lose their job. They're scared. It's going to blow up the world. World War III, right? Well, nah. It's already being used and has been used a long time. So then we're back to education. And if people can't understand that, how are they going to understand what an NFT is or what blockchain is, right? Then I think it's all kind of combined. But we'll see. 2024 is here. Something new could come up. But I do think they will iron out a lot of the, Elon's Grok versus chat versus, who else comes up with. But it's exciting. That's for sure.
And for our viewers, for our audience, I'm definitely not trying to diminish or speak ill will towards anybody who does like to promote VeVe. It's just, what's the softest approach is all I'm saying, is all I'm hoping for us to be able to incorporate in our daily conversations, because it's very difficult when you have somebody trying to push something on you that you're not really sure of. And we're trying to keep it positive as much as possible.
I would think maybe one of the easiest ways is going to be to get deeper into the silos of the brands that we have. I was totally fascinated by the Sesame Street reaction, the community reaction. I grew up on Sesame Street. I'm a huge Sesame Street fan. I love what they do, how they do it, for their audiences. Forget about the political corporate stuff, but what they're doing for their audiences. I learned a lot personally. And for the community to react the way it did was a little surprising to me. It was it's education. It was ignorance, and I don't like ignorance. For people to spout off on things when they don't really know. And the quality of those digital collectibles is so superior to other things out there in the market that's where the technology didn't match the demand. But I think it will, because you get the AR glasses on, you get different things, you get the other characters, you start some of the creativity that can be built. But to your point, Mr. V, for your kids to do for you personally to be able to build a Sesame Street so your kids could walk down and you could teach and use. I mean, it has to be easy for you to do because it has to be done quickly so that you can spend time with your kids and you're not spending hours trying to build this thing. But I could see that being very helpful from a parenting perspective for you in a few years. Right? As they start putting their goggles on, as they start learning, as they start watching TV on their tablets and having characters that they could learn from and then play with digitally, I think that could be very cool. Now, I'm building my collection of VeVe to be able to have my showroom or my VeVeVerse look a certain way, right? I'm not buying a whole bunch of Marvel stuff now. I'm doing some mint matching and some cool stuff where I think we'll be looking cool in the VeVeVerse. But it's also a game for me, right? I'll sit around and I'll snap so I just picked up and if you look at my profile, I've got some really cool mint numbers, but I got, for my partner statue, I picked up a Lambo, same mint number, right? So Mickey and Walt can drive around their Lambo in the VeVeVerse, same mint number. Does that mean anything? I don't know. It means something to me. So that works.
Have you ever thought of one day, so before you joined VeVe, have you ever thought of one day you collecting these digital collectibles, or this is something brand new that you just started because of VeVe?
It's pretty much, I wasn't going to buy anything. I surely wasn't going to buy anything in the sandbox, right?
Yeah.
And I was building in the sandbox, and we built buildings. I mean, you could buy a whole building from us. You could buy a concert stage. I mean, we built some really cool stuff. I was like, I'm not buying any of this stuff. I'm not, and then VeVe came and I saw Steamboat Willie, and I'm, and I had seen Candy baseball because I had collected baseball cards as a kid. Did you guys see, I was one of the first people interviewed by Metaverse Life on the VeVe Collectors at Heart series that Roth did for Metaverse Life. I was one of the first people interviewed by him after VeVe Magic. He came down after San Diego. It was Anaheim DCon. He came down in March of last year, and I hadn't told the story in a long time. Growing up, my parents got divorced when I was going into my senior year in my freshman year in high school. So my middle school years was very disruptive. In elementary school, I had baseball cards. I had shopping bags full of baseball cards. I was a huge New York Yankee fan. I had all the cards. And then it's as if my memory is foggy, but they all went away. They're just gone. All of a sudden, I woke up and they're all gone. I'm living in a new house, in a small little room, only focused on one thing, and that's to get through high school, to get to college, to get out of where I was, my town I wanted to go, and which I accomplished, and I did, but that's when all my collecting went away. I had stamps, I had coins, I had a whole variety of things. I like collecting stuff. I collect every time I go to the beach, I'll pick up shells. I mean, that's just kind of how I am. And then VeVe came along, and Steamboat Willie's the original, Mickey Mouse, huge fan, been to all the parks growing up, and just continued the baseball thing. Aaron Judge, New York Yankees, was going to break Roger Maris's baseball record. I'm buying moments every day. I'm doing all kinds. I mean, I'm collecting, but didn't realize it would get to this point, because of that I would actually get in the space and actually want to build a place, an environment, a space that people can come and check out my stuff, right? One of the coolest things that I've been involved in is, so you guys know Jermaine Rogers, right? The pop artist who's on VeVe, done some great work. I had the opportunity to spend some time with him at DCon last year, but he was the artist for a traditional 10,000 PFP project called My Homies in Dreamland, which was created around the brand of Cheech and Chong. You guys know Cheech and Chong? Okay, Cheech and Chong. Will, now this is your research.
Okay.
Cheech and Chong so talk about nostalgia, and most of the brands that are on VeVe are very nostalgic. Cheech and Chong are musicians, they're comedians, they have a movie, and all of their comedy is based around cannabis, smoking. And there's some very funny, great stories. And so they did a PFP. Jermaine Rogers was the artist and invented a dreamland, very similar to the concept of what Ron English has built for his stuff, but built this and did it 10,000 PFP, 7 characters for Cheech and Chong. And I got right involved in that program. I was actually part of talking about utility. I went up to LA to get into token gated event. I got into a room. We're in there. Cheech and Chong show up. There's 15 people in the room. We're all smoking joints. Cheech and Chong are telling their stories. I mean, there's nothing like that. And there would have never have been a way for me to get a ticket. How do you get that, right? Those are like raffle tickets. But this was you bought the NFT, you wanted to come, they let you in. So Jermaine has this vision of the homies in Dreamland. So I want to create now, if we're allowed, or when we're allowed, I should say, to be able to take a traditional NFT from OpenSea or my MetaMask wallet and place it in the VeVeVerse, I could create, and with Jermaine, create a Dreamland, right? Where you could come in and I could place my NFTs from Cheech and Chong, and then I could also do other things. as well as place my VeVe collectibles from Jermaine in that space. Those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about. But to your point, Mr. V, from a few minutes ago, I'm doing all these things in my head, right? Myself. When can I do it with others, right? Because it's what makes it fun is to show people, to share people. And yeah, you got a profile. Does anybody see your profile? Do you follow somebody? It needs it needs an injection of steroids, which I'm not sure how or when. I'm not sure they're going to flick a light switch, because we have been waiting 6 or 8 weeks now for the next, 100 people, 200 people that are going to allow into the VeVeVerse. Not sure, still not sure. I think this pendulum may have swung too far from them promising all these dates 2 years ago, right? First quarter, we're going to get this. Second quarter, we're going to get this, to like nothing, like crickets. Now, even when they make something good, like, and God bless the community, the shout outs for when they make a change in the web app, it takes the community to realize 3 days later that they made an awesome search change, right? Yeah. I mean, they're not giving themselves credit when credit is due. Now, they're also scared that they're going to give themselves too much credit, and then everyone's going to yell at them for not doing that. Well, it's about time you did that. You should have done this. You hear words I said, you should have done it sooner. I don't use those words. You can't do anything right, VeVe. No, can't. Should and can't, they're absurd words. They could move faster. They could communicate better. But that's an opinion, right? It's subjective, not objective. Now, they seem to be generating a lot of top line revenue. A lot of people are quick to say, well, $200,000 Lambo one day. We have no idea what their margins are. We have no idea what they're a private company, and let's respect that, right? So you want to shout out one thing here, not outshot. It's not balanced. It's not. Yeah, I'm almost scared to use the word because of the current state. But it put it into context. There has to be some contextual situation based on what you're talking about. Situational awareness, contextual awareness are pivotal for me, right? If you're not situationally aware of what you're talking about and in what the situation is or in what context, it doesn't mean much. I'm also trying to work on ways to there's hours and hours and hours of spaces that are created, as well as YouTube and podcasts created, that I'm working with Dave on a system by which AI can help scrape all that stuff and give you the 10 minutes or 15 minutes of critical data that you want to hear. Wow. I listen to all of my YouTube recorded stuff at 1.5 speed.
Wow.
Because talk faster, people. Come on.
Yeah.
Get to the point. Right. And now here I am just blabbering for an hour, but and it's okay if you go to 1.5 on me, because it's every other word that's probably most valuable.
Yeah. So now that we have about 10 minutes left, you mentioned about utilities for the collectibles. You mentioned about education, about new technology such as AR goggles in order to help the adoption of NFTs and, most importantly, VeVe. Looking forward to 2024 or 2025, where do you think the company or the app will head to? What is your vision for VeVe within the next 1 year or two?
I do think we'll wake up in the morning and go to one place. I think VeVe will be one of those places. For more than just, did I sell anything last night? Mm-hmm. What's new listed? I think we'll be able to go have coffee in a place. I think with the goggles that'll start coming out, we'll be able to meet and greet people. There'll be the same series of events from Family Feud. Shout out to that crew who's doing that. The YouTubers will have a space. There'll be a lot more interactivity. More brands will create their own spaces. There'll be more, much more confusion because everybody can get into the business, these different businesses, and they can do different things. The filters will become very, very, very important, I think, on what you want to see, when you want to see it, how you want to see it. And I think you'll have a lot of help doing that. I think there's going to be even more content created because the machines will help create the content. I was not on Twitter until 2 years ago. I had a hard time really thinking about now I understand the concept. Now people might push back at me, but for one person sitting somewhere being able to make a statement that is so absurd out to the world, and then that's okay. And therefore I chose not to be on the platform because I didn't want to hear a lot of static. It's taken me some time to really hone down on how you get information and then give information. So I am concerned about my granddaughter growing up in a world that is not tolerant of people that don't share the same vision of wanting to be in the same place to talk as humans, face to face, the human interaction. I'm fearful of that. I think COVID was a huge issue, a life quake for the world. And there's another book that I've listened to recently. It's called Life is in the Transitions. And I think we're all going through transitions, and we will continue to go through transitions. I'm working on a project for Mobiquity on what does the workplace look like in 2025. It can't be all virtual. What happened to Mobiquity as a publicly traded company in Manhattan is they were two companies, awesome companies, combined 6 months before COVID. They were all in the same office on Friday, 40 people. Friday happened. No one ever went back to the office, ever. People moved, COVID happened. Businesses can't grow without human touch. When I started, this is now be the second technology company I'm started, because Alpine, we kind of parked to the side for now because no one's doing sandbox digital development. No one needs sandbox assets or loyalty programs. But the second company we're starting, this AI company, it's about relationships, way over revenue. We're not going to, now I'm starting it bootstrapped. I'm not going to get investors because I want to prove that the concept works. Once I have somebody, we'll bring in other partners to participate. But it's a little scary out there. But I think there's huge opportunities. And the other realization of working like with the SEALs the last couple of years, you can't do it by yourself. So understanding that you need a team, being honest with yourself. I've been fortunate enough to be mentored. I've been fortunate enough to be a mentor, to be a mentee. And then learning the last 2 years has forced me to become my own mentor, right? Do your own research. Understand. You can ask AI about your personality and what would be appropriate and those kinds of things. So super excited about the future. Sorry about my long-winded answer, but VeVe, the content that VeVe has will be a foundation for a lot of games, experiences, because the quality is so good. I mean, I don't see anybody doing that quality. And if they can continue to harness those skills within their world, I think that there's huge opportunity.
Yeah. Steven, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. It was great learning from your very diverse experience from different projects different types of technology. For example, marketing technology, AI, those kind of things. And I'll say most importantly, you have that exposure to multiple projects, multiple companies in different industries. And that was very valuable for us today. And so again, really appreciate it. And I do agree with you on the things that has to happen for VeVe to make it. And or technology, time, education, everything. And most importantly, one thing you mentioned was we also need the help from those brands as well. VeVe is carry a lot of giants on their shoulder. Thank you so much, and we hope to have you again on the podcast in the near future.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Bye-bye. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and Omi related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.